Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSPmagazine. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
All right. Okay, everybody, this is Marco Ciappelli, and this is Redefining Society podcast. I'm laughing because we just had a little technical glitch here where I thought I was starting recording and I just disappeared from the screen. And William here, my guest today, I was very patient. I came back and we're just get going again. So here is technology for you. There is the good and there is the bad. The good is that I am talking to William all the way. You can see if you're watching the video in a dark environment, which is in Asia, and he will tell us where he is if he wants to. And I'm here in LA, of course. So on the other side, virtually connected, as we do many things in our life nowadays. That's why we are redefining society, the way we interact with each other. Today's conversation is right up my alley. It's about photography, it's about art, it's about advertising, which is my background, as many of you know, and the way that is affecting our life, and most specifically, generative AI, and how it is more and more being part of our life. So enough with this introduction. I want to introduce William here. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thanks a lot for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So let's start with the real you, who is William, and why are you interested in having this conversation with me in terms of art, photography, generative AI, and I know you have a very an involvement from a business perspective in something like this too. So let's hear about you.
Yeah, so my background, I'm originally from Sydney, Australia, live in Seoul right now. And I started my career in general business, so I did consulting for a number of years. And then I did something that was pretty interesting. It's called special situations. And that was basically finding companies that had, or when times change, right, whether it's regulatory change or technology change or market conditions change, what happens oftentimes, right, is that there are some companies that are very, very well positioned and some that aren't that well positioned, right? And so we spent a lot of time in my career, or I spent a lot of time in my career, basically finding these companies or these opportunities, and then positioning myself very well, and then riding the wave up. And a lot of that involved helping the company or working with the company and navigating it through the essentially the special situation. And then really, I think for me, AI and photography, especially in photography, is probably the special situation of a century. Photography, as you well know, hasn't really changed over the course of the last 2 decades. It's largely quite static. You still have to go and take photos manually if you want to get really great photos. You have to actually, if you think about it, let's say you're a young female, right? You have to do your hair, your makeup. You have to get up there. You have to find a place to take photos. You then have to actually take hundreds of photos, and hopefully you know how to pose very well, and you actually have a photographer. And then you have to travel all the way home and then edit them all. And out of every 100 photos that you actually create, you might only pick 3 or 4 that actually end up going on Instagram. So that's a pretty heavy journey. And same with photography, and I would consider business, right? So think about advertising companies, right? To go and shoot a single commercial using models, right? It'll cost you $100,000 plus 6 weeks, and you'll get 8 photos, right? Very, very long journey. And so, I think the very interesting thing about AI, especially in the last 12 months, is that that's disrupted all of that. In the future, the reason we're interested, right, is because, we see as AI taking the lead to automate what is currently a very, very manual process, and what has been a manual process for the last 2 decades.
All right, so there is a lot going on there, and I'm kind of processing in my head with some artificial intelligence where I'm going to go. So my first observation about this is I definitely agree with you. I mean, we're going in places that I think 10, 15, 20 years ago, we wouldn't even imagine. I'm thinking one of the big revolution for photography, which is different from the way you presented it, but was the digital photography, right? So I'm old enough that I worked in advertising with photographer that were coming in with a film camera. So talking about investment in really, using the shots, not, screwing up the shots, and really knowing the camera, really knowing the lighting. The experience was very, very important at the time. And talking about expensive. So the digital photography was already a revolution. Now, I am a big fan of experimenting with AI. I use Midjourney, I use ChatGPT. I feel like it's a tool. It's not the solution. Is a tool that increases my creativity. So I'm welcoming all of this. My fear, and this can be the follow-up conversation for the rest of the conversation, is how is actually affecting people. Meaning, don't you feel like it's taking away the experience factor from actually doing all these things? So I know it's easier, I know it's cooler, I know I can put myself in front of the Torre Eiffel without ever being in Paris, but where do we where it goes between fiction and reality, and how we distinguish from it. So your thoughts on that, on all of these? Just choose wherever you want to go.
I think you're absolutely right. There is an experience part of it, obviously, that people, we see it's probably, I would say, the older generation, right, really, really value more. I think the good thing about, the AI is that it can help you experience. Just imagine you're someone who grew up in rural China, right, who's never been able to have the opportunity or even be able to get the visa to go to Paris or the Eiffel Tower, right? Well, AI can actually help you to do that, right? Another example, let's say, you've got a great photo of your grandma, but she passed away, right? And you don't have a photo of you two together, right? Now you can put yourself next to your grandma and, create that new experience. Now that's not a taken by photo experience, right? But it is still very, very much an experience. I think the other thing to probably say is that it really depends on how you value, what you're taking the photos for. And there's a certain portion of people who will absolutely, you want to take photos. And again, a great example, like I travel a lot and I go to Paris by myself, or like, let's say Africa by myself, but I don't have anyone to take photos of me, right? And so all my photos literally, don't have me in it, right? Well, now, I can take that experience that I actually went to, right, and use AI to put myself into the photos that I actually took. So I think, definitely, there is a bit of, there is a real part, right? But I think there's a lot of that AI can help enrich that experience. And then I think the other part to that is then, there's a lot of people that don't take photos just for memories, right? A lot of times taking photos is about, showing something on a social media, right? Being able to social currency, right? And there you need high quality photos to, post on there. Or, for example, it's you're an influencer and you've got 50,000 fans, right? And you just don't have time to like spend 3 hours a day taking photos for your fans, right? So we actually find there's a lot of different use cases for taking photos of yourself. Yes, definitely the experience is one part. Obviously, it's great to take photos with your friends and do that, and I think that will still continue. But I think the AI does help enrich a lot of that experience, and then on top of that, also provide you an answer or solution for when photo taking isn't about that experience.
Right. No, I agree with you. And I like to go to the extreme so that then eventually towards the end, we kind of see things from different perspectives. So I agree with the things you're saying. I think that the important part is, as we are redefining the way that we use technology, the virtual world, the fact that we actually know what is real and what is still real because you did it, but it's digital and it's a generative art. And I love that. I just created a new character for the AI that we use on ITSPmagazine as kind of like the interface with people to ask what kind of podcasts we have and so on. And, I would never be able to do it myself. I don't draw, but I feel like it is my creation because I prompted the way I wanted to, right? So am I an illustrator? No, but I did it. right? So totally cool with that. What is, on your opinion, the where we need to educate and draw the line, when, especially with the new generation, and you're definitely a younger generation than mine, and there are some that are probably already younger than yours that are completely native digital. There's people soon going to be native AI. Distinguishing though between reality and virtual world, like being really being there and being there uh, virtually, which is great, if not everybody can travel the world, like you described. How do we educate these people? I mean, do you just give them the device like we've done with smartphone without really teaching them how to use it? And how then the others say, okay, is this guy just making fun of me because he's really never been in Paris? Let's keep using Paris as an example. Or is it just an artist that decided to create that image of himself?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, just to be very clear, your question is how do young people educate themselves on AI photos?
Well, educate themselves, or where we fail as an older generation to educate them when we introduce them to that kind of world.
Yeah, it's super interesting because I actually think it might be the reverse, right? We, yeah, because, when we look at the people who have picked up AI very quickly, right, and use it and integrate it into their lives, it tends to be younger people. Now, AI hasn't, I don't think it's got to like real mainstream. There's still a bit of work to get to real mainstream because, I think a lot of the AI tools that have come out, call it in the last 6 to 12 months, right, still remain pretty difficult for someone 20-year-old and likes TikTok to actually use. But we've seen that the pickup is pretty. I mean, this is a generation that embraces technology, right? And I mean, I'm sure, even though a lot of them haven't actually used AI before, I'm pretty much a lot of them have actually used it before. And they're very familiar with downloading new apps, and picking up, and within a few minutes learning, knowing exactly how to use it. I think it's actually, yeah, very interestingly the reverse. When we, for example, talk about our project, right, what we find oftentimes it's the, call it the 45, 50-year-old, older guy who's, hey, why would I ever use a fake photo, right? Well, and that contrasts very, very differently versus the young person. Wow, this is a tool that's changed my entire life. I've always needed something like that, right? So it's actually quite interesting. We find, yeah, at least there's been much openness and greater acceptance with younger people than I would say, some of the older generation. Obviously not, completely. That's not to say that's everyone's like that, right? But generally, in the conversation that we've had, that's probably been a trend.
Yeah, and I'm definitely one of those that you describe. So,
Yeah,
but with the difference that I have always welcomed the new technology, I'm fascinated by it. But I still, I like to distinguish, remembering growing up with the analog, the cassette and the vinyl and behind me. But I also use the digital world, and I'm super excited about it. One thing I want to pick your brain in, it's like we said we were going to talk a little bit maybe of advertising, and if you talk about that nowadays, is influencer. You mentioned TikTok. There are a lot more and more influencers that are completely AI generated. You are in Korea right now. I know there is some very, very big influencer there, even musician artists that are not really existing, but they have millions of followers. They are musicians. They songs, acting, and all of that. Your take on that, and what is the pulse that you're feeling in the business and the advertising industry on this? Is it really the future, or is it just a
Yeah, so I think in terms of digital models, that's definitely has seen. I mean, it's not something in the last 12 months. Actually, it's been around for 2, 3 plus years now. I think it has done well because obviously, I think there's a niche or a portion of the population for which a lot about influencers is about the experience that you give to your audience base, right? And sometimes that's, I love, the blue theme dresses that this person always wears, right? Or I love this person's style of playing this instrument, right? But there's always a specific theme, right? And I think definitely digital influencers do the same thing. Actually, quite interestingly, I mean, I would say a lot of the influencers that you see, let's say, for example, in China, actually don't look like their real life, because the technology across the world in terms of being able to put filters on your faces, right, and streamlining jaw and making your face much wider, and making yourself look younger, it's incredible now. So I think influencers, whether it's digital or not, I mean, ultimately it's going to have a person behind. It's more, I think, on the spectrum of how much does that person look like the person sitting behind the keyboard, right? And a lot of them is like super real, identical, and a lot of them are stretched out and very different. So I think that's one part. I definitely think it is one part. I think in terms of where AI comes into this, I think the interesting thing for me in, call it, advertising is, for the first time in history, you have this concept where you can actually license out your image rights to a company like ourselves, right? That we can take those image rights, and then we can actually go and take that and show it on a new advertisement company advertisement, or 5 of them at the same time, or even 30 of them at the same time, and you don't have to do anything, right? So that's super interesting. It hasn't been possible before, because to do a commercial shot, you've always had to show up. If you're a very busy K-pop star, right, you still have to go and take a week off your life to go and fly to Hawaii and shoot the commercial. And I think what we're seeing is that now, okay, well, you can have a digital virtual model, right, but you can also have a digital virtual model of someone, right, and take those rights and then sell those rights and generate revenue through those rights. And I think that's going to be a very powerful tool going forward.
So I can see a future where we all have a digital twin, and then we either go somewhere, do something, or we send a digital twin doing that. And it'd be cool if then you use it in the metaverse, you use it for certain things. But again, I like the idea from a sociological perspective and psychological, to always be able to recognize what is true from what is true but virtual, because I think it's true. I mean, I'm a big fan that at this point what we do online is reality. I'm not definitely the one that says no, if it's virtual it's not real. I mean, we are having a conversation right now, and I was talking to your avatar. I would have been talking to you anyway, in a way, with some entity. So I'm totally open for that. But there is the issue of, again, knowing. So I'm going to pick your brain on a couple of things, which is kind of maybe connected. One is, of course, the deep fake that generative AI can create, artificial intelligence in general. I mean, it's very scary, especially for people that don't understand how this technology works. And the other thing is the application of this technology that is kind of, scaring people. Let's look at the writer strike in the movie industry. I'm in LA. I can see that all the actors are striking because they don't want to be taken away and by their reproduction in a digital world. So are we overreacting, on your opinion, to this, or is it legit that people will lose job and people will be tricked in believing things that are not real? And you can, I know there's 2 questions, so start with one and I'll follow with the other.
So I think in response to your first question, in terms of deepfakes, you're right. It's absolutely going to get very scary. I mean, I think photos are probably there in terms of being unable to tell whether something's real or not. And then in terms of video, we're probably 12 months away from, video that looks identical, and not just, a single video. This is like video with like being able to move and so forth. Just last week, actually, I saw a company come out with a video where me and you were chatting, right? Look absolutely realistic. So I think this will happen, and it will get to the point. I mean, it's inevitable in my mind, right? That in the next 12 to 24 months, or you cannot tell whether it's a picture or video, the difference between a real or not. And I think that's where I think companies need to start following a standard for how they disclose and disclose, and also put watermarks on all the content that actually create or comes out of that. I think governments probably need to be very proactive around that. To me, it's, there's so many. I mean, you can just very easily now call someone up, right, and use someone else's voice and convince them that that person is you, using AI, right, which is very frightening. And so I think there's got to be probably a big push by both governments and corporates, right, to educate, to hold to standards, right, to make sure that people adapt and learn about these things as soon as possible. And in particular, I think when you look at history, right, generally I would say, again, similarly, you probably have to do that or spend more time with the older generations, right, rather than the younger people, who tend to be very word of mouth, very strong social lubricants, and know a lot of people, and everyone talks about it, and they sort of get the gist very quickly. So I think that's probably how I think about the deep fakes. And then sorry, can you remind me of your second question?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't expect you to. Otherwise, I would start thinking you are an AI.
It's 2 a.m. here in Seoul.
Oh wow. Okay. So
Wow.
no, don't worry. I'll refresh you. So we're talking about the connection between that from recognizing if something is real or not, which you covered, and the other one was in regard to people losing jobs, people being afraid about taking over, strike in the movie industry, acting, but also a lot of other jobs that may be taken. I mean, I'm personally like we've gone through this before. There's been like disruption, but your opinion on the matter.
No, absolutely. I think the technology will come where, I mean, AI will automate a lot of things. It's not just acting; it's across the board. Obviously, some industries will get it more affected than others, and we will see loss of jobs. But I think you're absolutely right. I mean, these technology evolutions happen in every sector, every industry, across basically every period of time for over the last 100 years. And if anything, what you're actually seeing is that more jobs over time have actually created, right? But so I think that's what the data shows. I think if you think, just for example, photography, right, or even just photography, there maybe no need to do certain shots because they can be automated by AI, but people need to be able to curate good images, and they need to be able to prompt the images that are actually created. And there's going to be different types of jobs that need that bit of upskilling. I think there are definitely going to be parts. I think whether you're part about overreaction, I mean, look, I think this is a very natural reaction, and it happens in cycles, in every economic cycle that's ever happened. My big push here is that I think the companies that are most affected, that are at the pointy end of that disruption, they need to be, in order, I would encourage them to be very open in terms of how they think about the next 24 months, right, and be adaptable to new business models, right? And I'll give you an example, right? We talk to a lot of modeling agencies, right? And if you think about traditional modeling, right, if you have your business is literally taking models and putting them on photos and taking the photo shoot and earning a margin off that, and you literally have 15 models sitting in your stable, right? Yes, we've been on phone with a few of them, and a few of them have been, hey, you're the big enemy, and hey, I shouldn't be talking to you, right? But I think a few of them have been, okay, well, yeah, I think they have had an attitude where it's been more, hey, I realize this is going to happen. I'm not happy because it means my business is going to be disrupted, and in 12 months I'm not going to be earning any revenue, and for the last 5 years I've already been severely impacted by margins. But I think this is a great opportunity, and I think hopefully there's a way we can partner together to work together, right? And make both businesses successful, right? And a lot of time that actually works, right? Because we've got this tech, right? But we don't have the model connections or the know-how in the industry or the customer connections. And so that's where I think for specific companies that are open to that change, right, they can get ahead of that curve, right? Rather than, I think the worst thing is to, see the entire industry change and refuse to do anything different.
And that's the big enemy. I love that you went there, and I think we're gonna start wrapping up the conversation with that, which is resisting. I don't want to use like a sci-fi sentence like resistance is futile, but because that's about people, like an alien community coming and conquer you. In this case, is about any time that somebody try to resist, like, I don't want to use computer. Your business is going to be affected. I don't want to use digital photography. Well, your business is going to be affected. So you need to be in a constant change. And I think there is still room for everything else. I mean, there is not the things, it's just different. It's just redistributed in a certain way. So I want to close with this. As a young generation, a young entrepreneur and business doing generative AI, do you think that because the regular photography, let's call it regular, is not going to disappear, or modeling, do you think there's going to be a different price point where what is real, it's going to be more valuable than what is digital, or the other way around, because the cost goes down? So from a business perspective, the economy of it, do you see a difference?
Look, I think history shows generally when the production or the marginal cost of producing something goes very close to zero, the price drops very close to zero as well. Right. And so, in my mind, I think, let's say you're a model, right, or influencer, right? I think the price of what you offer will very quickly go to zero unless you can offer something better than the other model. And generally, the only thing that I see that's probably valuable is your followers, your follower base, right? And so if you don't have that follower base and you don't have that specific niche, right, the actual photo taking, I think that quickly becomes zero. And my personal view is that the peak, but call it 95% of modeling work will disappear in the next 24 months, right? The 5% that remains will be with call it the quasi celebrities or celebrity models or the very, very strong influencer types, where there's still a demand to use their image rights because they have this follower base, whether it's niche or broad. So look, I think I think my view is generic model where it's just a pretty face or any face without that ability without that follower base will quickly approach zero.
Right. So being creative, right? I mean, being innovative, knowing how to change, try to give something new to your public, not just sitting there because and that I feel like it's for modeling, but also for business. It's nice if you get to a point that you don't need to do anything anymore, but it's very unrealistic.
Exactly.
All right, cool. William, I know it's late out there. I enjoyed the conversation. I hope you did too. And for all the followers and subscriber of my show, there will be notes. I will write a piece, or maybe ChatGPT will do it for me. And about this article, and there will be all the links to William, so you can get in touch, learn about his business, connect if he wants to with his social media. So William, again, thank you very much. And for everybody else, stay tuned for another episode of Redefining Society podcast. Thank you, William.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot. Great talking.
Thank you. All right. Take care.
Thanks for having me, Marco.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you learned something new and this story made you think, then share ITSPmagazine with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our columns. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.